Welcome to another video by AskMath.com. Let's read the directions to this problem. Graph the system of inequalities. Given x is greater than -1 and y is greater than 2. Now let's remember what a system of inequalities is. A system just means two or more, and so here we have two different inequalities. This is a system because it's two or more of inequalities. Inequalities just means these symbols here are inequality symbols instead of equal signs. Equal signs would make them equations. And to graph those, we learned how to graph equations, and we're going to follow the same rules for equations, and then we're just going to learn a few new things that these inequality symbols do to the graph. Let's go ahead and draw a graph here. And one of these two inequalities is a little bit special. It's this first one here. We have done a lot of graphing of equations that were in what's called slope-intercept form, and we'll see that in just a second for this one. But for the first one, this is not in slope-intercept form, and to do that, we just have to remember what this is asking us to do. X is greater than -1. Now, start by remembering what you would do if this were an equation. X equals -1. And what that means is that we're only concerned with the x-axis. There are no y's in the problem, so you can kind of, for now, forget that there's a y-axis at all. We're just going to look at this x-axis. And if this had said y equals -1, x equals -1, you would start at the origin, and -1 is over here for the x, and that's where x is -1, and so you draw a point. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. Okay, now consider that we're not just on the x-axis, we also do have a y-axis, but x has to be -1. Well, where else is x -1? Well, it's also -1 up here, right? So if we go up 1 on the y-axis, that doesn't change the x value. We're still to the left 1, that's an x value of -1. And in fact, you could go as high or as low as you want to, and all the points right there that are lined up vertically all have an x value of -1. Let's just graph our coordinates. So this is -1, and also this is -1, right? The x value of both points is -1. For this first point, the y value is 0, and on the second point, we've gone up 1. But every point along here starts with a -1 for the x value. Okay, now we've got our 2 points, and we're going to connect them, but this says x is greater than, it does not say or equal to. So remember that if you have a symbol like this versus a symbol like this means a solid line, and this means a dashed line. And similarly, if you had this also means solid, and this also means dashed. So what we have here is we have a dashed line. So we're going to connect these 2 points with a dashed line, and then it keeps going both directions forever. So you draw the arrows. Okay, so that's one difference between this and an equation, which would have an equal sign. The second difference is that we have to do some shading. And so this says x is greater than, and so remember that greater means shade one direction, and less means shade another direction. Now we have a unique situation here where normally if we were in y equals mx plus b form, we'd say greater means shade above and less means shade below. Here we have a vertical line, so there is no above or below. Greater means the direction of whatever variable you're dealing with. And so we're dealing with an x variable. And so where is x greater than -1? Well, here x is 0, here x is 1, here x is 2. Those are greater. So we shade this direction. Okay? And it keeps going forever that direction. All right, the next inequality that we have is y is greater than 2. Now, some of the other videos show how to do this in slope-intercept form, and that's a great thing to remember how to do. For this one, we're just going to see how we can do this the same way as how we did this x-line. Same idea. Forget for a moment that there's an x-axis and we're dealing with the y-axis. And y is greater than 2, well, start from the origin, find out where y equals 2 first, 1, 2, here it is, and go ahead and draw a dot. But this is y is greater than 2, so that would be y values, up here, right? So this is the bottom of what y can be, but where else is y a 2? Remember that you can now move right and left. That doesn't change what y is. Y has to still be at a height of 2, but any point at a height of 2 is still at this height here. Okay, so let's write coordinates. So this one has coordinates, I'll just draw a little arrow here, of 0 to the left or right for the x value, and then up 2, that's a positive 2. And this one, we just arbitrarily, that just means there was no reason we could have gone as far to the right or to the left as we wanted to, and we just chose to go 1 to the right, and then we had to still go 2 up. And so like the next point would be 2, 2, 3, 2, 4, 2, right? The first number can change because we don't care about x, but the second number is y, and that has to stay at 2. This also is a dashed line because it's that inequality symbol without the extra little equal sign. So we're going to connect these with a dashed line and then keep going in both directions forever. So you draw the arrows. And now, same thing, where is y greater than 2? Well, 3, 4, 5, anywhere above that line. And so we're going to shade above the line. Now, we're done with the problem. We've graphed the system, but to show the solution of the system, which might also be part of what you're asked to do, the solution is where the shading overlaps. So here we have shading above this line, here we have shading to the right of this line, here we have both. Above the one line and to the right of the other line. And so all of this overlap forever. As you move up, it's going to be this part here, okay? And that is the solution. It does not include the dashed lines. Dash means not part of the solution. So if you have a point like these points on those lines, not part of the solution. All right, that is the end of this problem. Thanks for watching another video by AskMath.com.